I think this is probably the most invigorating JP Morgan I've been to in at least 10 years. A significant number of the clinical studies that fail are failing because they were poorly designed. I think at this JP Morgan, there's full ownership with people saying, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to sell. This is what I need to buy. This is the management change I need to make. These are the tough decisions I need to make.
Onyx Live is proudly sponsored by Humphreys Law and Panacea.
My name is Ali Pashazadeh. Thank you for having me. I'm going to let you do this again.
So, second day of discussions here at Treehill. What have been the major topics that have come up?
The major topics coming up today have been the couple of announcements that have happened in terms of the NVIDIA relationship that Thermo Fisher announced, what the implications of that are. There have been a lot of large cap pharma meetings that we've had during the course of today that show exciting development and engagement. So yesterday when we were speaking, we were talking about Biotechs and CDMOs and CROs. I think this is probably the most invigorating JP Morgan I've been to in at least 10 years.
Really? What would you say is contributing to that feeling?
I think there's an engagement and acknowledgement that in order for us to affect change, it's down to us to affect it, as opposed to hoping that the market will come back and then we can go back to what we were doing before. So everybody that we're talking, almost everybody we're talking to says, look, the market may or may not come back in the prior form. And in that context, what am I going to do to take ownership of my future? I think that ownership point is what we've been discussing with clients for the past 4 or 5 years. And I think at this JP Morgan, there's full ownership with people saying, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to sell. This is what I need to buy. This is the management change I need to make. These are the tough decisions I need to make. And that ownership point is very evident at this JP Morgan. Mm-hmm. So people feel empowered to take control of their own future.
I understand a big talking point today has been regarding CROs, specifically looking at the difference between some of these specialised CROs and those that are perhaps a lot larger but more broad in their scope. Where are the main priorities and concerns in your clients?
The common point between the two of them is, given the current level of funding, they have one shot to get it right. They want to understand which of the CROs are going to engage with them in the most productive way. Who's going to give them an honest appraisal of that's the right study, engage with them in study design. And as we've discussed previously, that's where we at Treehill spend a lot of our time, which is interfacing or working the interface between CROs and companies in terms of making sure that it's a right fit with the right CRO and the CRO is going to deliver on what they promise. Because it's very difficult based on proposals to know who will deliver. And I think that delivery point question is, do you go for a global player or do you go for a regional player that has a speciality? And I think that is going to get increasingly difficult when people start looking at running multinational studies. And that was a lot of discussions we've been having during the course of today.
What would you say are some of the green flags that a client should be looking out for when they're looking at CROs?
A track record of delivery in that area, an ability to positively engage and dissuade clients from certain things, to question a null hypothesis of whether that's the right thing to do or not. Those are the green flags. As opposed to chasing someone who then essentially shows you the last 4 protocols they ran without really knowing your product. So I think it's more red flag, if I'm being honest, rather than a green flag.
And you spoke about study design, and I understand one of the big talking points today was about margins of error. How has that come up in conversation?
So one of the things that we've been discussing for a number of years now is, in the healthcare industry, we've been very quick to blame the molecule for failure and to take ownership of successes, and that's our success with the molecule's failure. I think that story is beginning to play itself out, which it should have done. And now people are realizing that a significant number of the clinical studies that fail are failing because they were poorly designed. And again, I think that comes back to ownership, which is owning your successes, then owning your failures.
And as far as US manufacturing is concerned, how are you anticipating that some of the smaller biotechs are going to be able to keep up?
The interesting thing is I don't have an answer for that. And we had a good 65-minute session with a very large US manufacturer, with Biotechs today. And the conclusion that we had is that that we probably need 2 or 3 more discussion sessions before we know whether, is it material? So what we've been advising at Treehill is that for clients to access the US market, a US manufacturer is a prerequisite. Questions are, how does AI change the landscape? 2, what happens when Saudi builds its US manufacturing capabilities up with the relationship with Wuxi? And is the price differential between Europe and between Wuxi, for example, in China, and the US, is that surmountable? Or will people run clinical study batches manufactured in China and then do a tech transfer later on? And that subtlety, I don't have the answers to that yet. And this is one where, the conclusion that we came to is this is probably far more opaque than we expected.
We've been interviewing various CEOs throughout the week, and what we've generally been hearing is that the market's back and the money's back. But what I'm hearing from you is clients saying that they're finally taking ownership of the fact that the market may not be coming back. Do you feel like we're speaking to different people, or is there something more nuanced going on behind closed doors versus what people are sharing publicly?
I do think sentiment is far more positive at this conference than it was even at Jefferies in November or JPM last year or Bio in June of last year. So I agree that sentiment's back. Having been a bank of the past 20 or so years, the looking at metrics and looking at deals performed is always retrospective. So you're always looking backwards and saying, this is what happened, and something went from 14.2 to 14.6, hence it's going in the right direction. My sense is the fundamentals of why the market's coming back is now being addressed. If you address the fundamentals, by definition, the market will come back.
Yeah.
So the market coming back, if the index goes up 10% and comes down 10%, it, to me, as a banker of an aging banker now, is where is the fundamental? Without the fundamental building block, it's not sustainable. But for the market to come back, it's not, for example, the NASDAQ or any of the indices go up, is the whole funding value chain intact? So can a VC get in and get out? Can they go public? The public companies, can they do follow-on offerings? So for us to say the market's back, it's like looking at a conveyor belt. You can't look at each component of the conveyor belt. Is a conveyor belt from A to Z actually running? And the answer is, at the moment, it's not. But do I think the building blocks to put that back is in place? I do think it's getting there.
And as far as macro trends are concerned from these discussions, obviously you've now doubled the number of conversations from yesterday compared to today. Has that reaffirmed any of your thesis, or has anything changed?
I think it's along the same sort of lines. I think I'd like to come back to that on Thursday. By Thursday, we would have had close to 200 meetings. By Thursday, I'll be able to give you a clearer answer to that. I think our hypothesis that we articulated yesterday was correct, but I think it's foolish without having more data points to say yes, because otherwise you're just agreeing with yourself. The question is, which bits did we get wrong? And at this point, I'm not quite clear that we've got too many things wrong, but you can't get everything right. So I'd rather come back to you when I've got things wrong than say I was wrong on this. So for example, on US manufacturing, I may be wrong. And I really want to understand whether that's correct or not. And by the end of JPM, we would have had close to 16 large cap pharma meetings. I'd like to have those and then be able to turn around and say, this is what we learned.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're agreeing with yourself.
Of course.
Which is always pleasant, but doesn't mean you're clapping yourself, and that's
absolutely
probably not helpful.
Well, looking forward to catching up after those meetings take place. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.